Yes.
Speak that many languages anyway. So
Spanish.
I don't know where to stand there a little bit. I guess I will stand in the way. However. So my name is Martin Gross. I work as a business development manager for a kind of new started group within our strategy department called Sustainable City Solutions. And we were founded by our CEO some 2 years ago, I would say. And with the mission to create a solution and see the city as a customer in total, and not only, so to say, specific applications, as we call them. With applications, we're talking about haulage, distribution, etc., etc. So we wanted to see the whole city as so to say, one big customer in order to provide a total solution for the city. We're not really there yet that we can contribute with a total one big solution for the cities yet, but we are stepwise. We're really getting into that direction. So what we basically would like to do, we would like to increase the efficiency of the cities, because what we see today, I will just speak a little bit the brief background of us, and then I will go into a little bit into the solutions which we have made. So what we see more and more is, of course, that huge urbanization going on in the cities. I guess it's similar in Argentina. People are moving in from the countryside into the cities. Everyone wants to have transportation of people. Everyone needs transportation of goods, and that also generates waste, right? So we're having these three modes of transportation, and we're having more and more people moving into the cities. Of course, also when it comes to Buenos Aires and other cities in Argentina, I would assume they're quite old cities, very difficult, to squeeze in, more and more traffic. They have the roads, they have the buildings, you can't do anymore. So we have to look into that more and more. How can we increase the utilization of the vehicles and also the fill rate of the vehicles? Because if we look for, so to say, the worst of them all, the private car, it's a utilization of 4%. Most of the time, 1 hour of the day, you're actually using the car rest of the time. It stands in the various parking lots all over the world, right? Isn't that how I think it looks the same wherever you go. If you look into a commercial vehicle, somewhat better, 30%. That also kind of reflects the operating hours of a day, right, to 8 hours at which you work. And if you look into the long haulage specifically, we see that the fill rate in average, at least in Europe, is 50%. So there's a lot of big potential to kind of move these figures up. And we believe that we need to do that by creating smarter solutions. When it comes to private vehicles, that's not in our business, that's for sure, but we have close cooperations with Volkswagen, for instance. They're looking to more car sharing and so on. So basically, we're trying to provide services and solutions for the end users in some way to make this more efficient. We're also looking into how to make, let's say, shared transport of goods and waste in the Stockholm city center. But as of today, I was supposed to speak about our mobility solutions, which we have developed recently. We call it Scania Go. As of now, we have only implemented it here in our site, and I think we will spend some time doing a presentation about this. You might have some questions, and then we can just step outside. And since it's the lunchtime, there will be a lot of movement happening around the system. People are starting to move during lunchtime. We have some electrical bikes. You can take a ride on them, so we can just go out and see it real time. So coming back to one of those modalities which we spoke about, the transportation of people. I guess, so to say, the most people need to transport themselves is back and forth to work, commuting, basically. I mean, I guess that's my, so to say, qualified guess, but I would assume it's the same all over the place. You need to go back and forth to the job. That's why you spend most of the time in the, so to say, people transport segment. We have also seen a lot of trends, and I totally assume, I just spoke with my colleague here, I just came back from Sao Paulo just this Sunday in order to have a need-finding trip, and I see that the trends and similarities with Europe are very big. I mean, I would say even that in Brazil, this has come even further due that you have such an implemented system already of commuting of buses taking people back and forth, and understood it's also the same in Argentina, that you have people taking buses taking people back and forth. So what we also see is that let's say new generation of coming up of employees called what we call the millennials, for instance. We see a decline in people that want to take the license, for instance, driving license, and also a big decline in people that want to own their own car. More and more people like to have everything as a service, and that's also what this is also somewhat called, mobility as a service in sometimes. You want to have the Spotify, I guess you have it in
Yes.
there.
Yeah.
You have Netflix, you know, no one who
Netflix.
buys a CD, who buys a DVD, you open up your Netflix, you log into your account, and there's all your services.
Yes.
Same with music. And people, the new generation will sooner or later expect the same when it comes to mobility, when it comes to car sharing, or just coming back and forth to your workplace. As in our solution, as we have developed, we have an app which you can download later. You will see where the buses are, when they will arrive. You just type in, I'm going from this meeting room to that meeting room, and it will give you the best route. Of course, integrated mobility, a demo. I mean, this is a demo site which we have created, and our vision is to kind of go worldwide and try to implement this in other sites. Of course, multimodality is the key word here. We're combining big job shuttle buses with our little bit of internal taxi, as well as our small shuttles and also our electrical bikes. Of course, we also forced to do this to some extent because we are located, as you might see, we have Stockholm, the capital, which is kind of where we find a lot of our competence. Of course, this is where our big engineering schools are located and so on. And we would like to attract that talent to come to us. Of course, we're competing with a lot of IT companies, let's say, in Stockholm Center. It's always hard to compete with a big city center. So by providing this seamless mobility solution, we hope to also be able to attract these talents to come to us. And of course, our kind of leading star is always efficiency. That is kind of Scania in heart. So to say, efficiency and eliminate waste. That is kind of our core values since we were founded. And sustainability is also, of course, the last 10 years has been the big, so to say, also the new leading star. So this is a bit how we integrate the system in total. So we have, as mentioned, we have the Job Express, which is the big buses. We have our, so to say, inside taxis, which is called Comfort. We have our small shuttles, which are called, we just call them Rundtur. It's a Swedish word, not really know how to translate it. And then, as of quite recently, as of May this year, we introduced electrical bikes, which you can take yourself back and forth.
Is it a Scania bike or it's a?
It's not a Scania bike. We don't produce bike, even though Scania was once. I don't know if you know about it. They were actually bicycle manufacturers.
As a museum.
Yeah, but we actually recently found out that Volkswagen is actually making electrical bikes. I found out that just 1 month ago, so maybe we will since rest of, besides the buses, of course.
And the rest was Volkswagen.
Yeah.
That is why I'm looking for a bike.
Yeah. So I mean, I think with the future, it's not impossible that we actually implement the Volkswagen electrical bikes. So basically, we try to connect all of this in one application where you see all the modes of transportation real time. We're not allowed to show the bikes due to some GDPR. You cannot really track individuals, but you can see. You will be able to see the station, so to say, because these bikes are not free floating. You need to kind of dock and unlock them from a specific station. But you can see how many bikes you have there and so on. And in all of the vehicles, you have a driver interface. This one, where the driver sees at what, so to say, what's next stop is, how he or she is on the time compared to the time schedule. And also he and she can receive messages. And the messages are mostly provided by what we call the control tower, which is kind of it is a control tower basically, a fleet management that sits and controls this. And you can send out push messages to both the end user saying, let's say we have an accident on the highway, the Job Express might be late, or I don't know, there's a union meeting for the drivers, so there will be no transportation between these hours. Right? So that's the whole idea, to kind of connect this whole transportation mode. These transportation modes did exist before as well. What we did was let's connect them all and, so to say, create a digitalized platform in order to start collect the data, which I'm coming to here. This is where they spoke about. I think this is the So here. So what is today is actually that the whole solution has been experience-based, meaning that we assume that people take this and this line as of this hour, let's say. But we don't really know. But connecting all of this, we could say, for instance, that we will see that people are not taking a certain line or stepping off at a certain stop at one point of time. Let's say at 2 o'clock during Tuesdays, there's no one actually using this line. So we can, by connecting all of this, we can start to create and gather data and make things, so to say, this whole solution more efficient. As of now, all routes are fixed. They go in A to B and they stop on specific stops. Our ambition is to make it dynamic, that you will not have actual lines, but they will actually, by algorithms, be able to recognize that here is a bunch of people that want to go in a similar spot, and it can kind of collect all these people and drop them off at a similar location. And also, as of now, the system is stopping at all stations, as a regular bus line is doing. Goes and stop, goes and stop. Our ambition is also to make it more demand-driven. They will only either stop or go depending that there is a demand for it, and not just sort of say a dumb version of it, but it actually goes and stops. And this is, of course, everything is very data-driven. We need to connect it, we need to gather data, and we need to kind of work with the data constantly. But this is this is the whole mobility, so to say, the whole mobility movement is going into this direction. From going about this old type of way of doing of the operations. I guess this has been around for 150 years. The buses has been going A to B, stop at every station, and so on. We're trying to kind of make it more flexible.
Just of course, the system is closed, I suppose, no? So it's not open to another ways to transportation. For example, train is not available.
As of now,
you have the train station here in Södertälje.
Exactly. As of now, it's not open, but our mission is to also connect other public transport, for instance, into the system.
Very nice.
Yeah, you have downloaded. Perfect. Yeah, please feel free to download the app, Scania Go, in the App Store.
One bike.
Yeah. My screen here is not really working, so I have a little tough time to see which slide is coming up next. So yeah, this is the one I hope for. So we launched the system in May this year, sorry. And actually we had quite a success of it. We were #1 trending app during 1 week in Google Play, and I must say that's quite an achievement.
How many users?
Users, we have 6,000 downloads. Yeah. Which corresponds to around 40% employee conversion. That was in those 2 weeks. We have, I think on this site we have 13,000 employees, whereas 2,000 are consultants. And from a union perspective, we don't, as of now, we don't let in the consultants into the system. That's a kind of union negotiation. So considering that, we have a 40% conversion rate. I would say is quite impressive in such a short time. We're also now starting to measure the trends if we can see that people start using these systems more and more. And also the idea is a lot of why we started to implement this shuttle buses for instance, is that as you have seen, maybe our site is quite spread out.
It's only for Android?
No, it's for iOS as well.
Yes,
Yeah.
okay.
So of course you need to have meetings between the buildings, because let's say here is one location, and then we have so to say what we call Scania South, which is the total other end of the site. I mean it's a quite a distance in between, and previously you were kind of dependent that you had your own car, that you were able to go back and forth these two locations in order to have a meeting, for instance. That's why we introduced the shuttle bus, but also we saw that they were used to some extent, but you had the timetable on the internet and so on. This is not so to say how the new generation would like to be transported. They want to open an app, see where the bus is. We even have integration with their Outlook calendar, so you can see when you open the Scania Go app, you're able to see this is the meetings I have, and it will show you the best route to get to that specific meeting, and it will also be able to show you a push notice saying, all right, you have a meeting in 20 minutes, you better leave, take this internal line or this bike or however you want to transport yourself. So, and also of course we have 8,000 cars coming in every day. And they are increasing by day. So that was also of course an issue we needed to address, that we need to have people transporting between our various buildings within the site, but don't spend time in finding parking, because people are kind of not eager to let go of their parking spot. If let's say if they stay around this area, I mean, after 8 o'clock it's impossible to park here, so we have to walk quite a distance. So it becomes in that way, it becomes that, you know, if you have parked, you don't want to you don't want to take your car to another building, because then you will lose your spot, and then you also have to spend time finding a new parking in that new place. And then you come back here and it's gone. So it's you spend a lot of time in efficiency in finding parkings and so on. So by creating this system, making seamless, we hope that, you know, yes, of course, you have, first of all, you have the option if you live in Stockholm to go by a shuttle job express, and while you're in the site, you can always take the shuttles, you can take the bikes, and for some areas which are remote, where we don't have lines, we actually have the internal taxi, which is totally flexible, can go wherever you want, pretty much in Södertälje. So that's a little bit the whole idea of creating the system, and the feedback we received has been, of course, very valuable. Of course, we get some things to improve as well, which we're also very happy for to get that, because previously this was only there was no natural speaking partner for the users to speak with, and we always get this ways of improvement. Just check back somewhere. This, I think this is more interesting. Yeah, so what we are actually offering, as I think I was already mentioned, is of course for the end users. Safety may be not a big concern so much here, but as I mentioned, we were just in Brazil, and there, of course, safety is a big issue. So we can offer for the end users, let's say, in other places of the world, this safety net that you will able to, you see when the bus is coming, for instance, you can just step out, and, you know, not needed to stay at the stop and wait for the bus, where you could be exposed to risk. Seamlessness is, of course, our leading star. Want to have as seamless as possible. Try to minimize the idle time in transit, meaning, you can go and time your bus and so on. I guess you know as the Uber working. You go out, you see where the Uber is, and you're kind of just stepping out when it's outdoors. Trying to, of course, try to lower the stress by not having these issues, as mentioned before, with the always constant headache of where to park, and you have to plan your trip in a total other way. And of course, the end ambition here is this is also which we are just trying to design now, is that, as mentioned before, if you look at your private car, the utilization rate is 4%. If we are able to offer a very good commuting service, you will only basically need your car for the weekends. And when you start to calculate how much each trip costs to only go on the weekends, your car actually becomes very, very expensive. So say by playing with these numbers around, it could come to a certain stage where, for instance, I mean, if we offer this service in such a great extent that you may be able to sell your car, because on the weekends you go by Uber or you take a car sharing and so on and so on. I mean, and that's also what we're aiming for in the long run, but maybe integrate car sharing services, for instance, into this whole system that we also as an employer can provide you a total mobility solution for you as an employer. That you get your daily commuting services through the Scania Go app, let's say, and then on the weekends you can use Volkswagen car sharing service, for instance. And of course, for the corporations, we see the benefits of becoming an attractive employer. It's trying to eliminate waste. That is kind of one of the Scania key leading stars. Also the waste in terms of the commuting and transferring between the buildings, as mentioned before. Also, of course, sustainable transport is also one of the leading stars we have. Congestion, big problem. For instance, partly when the factory is closing down under one shift, everyone is leaving at the same time. It becomes partly a chaos in this whole area. Everyone's wanting to leave at 4 o'clock.
I can imagine.
It's I think it's 6,000 factory employees working like that, or just leaving at once.
At the same time.
Yeah, it creates quite a situation. And of course, parking. It's an issue for us, and it's an issue, I would say, all larger industries. I mean, as soon as you start to get up in employees, I mean, you need to provide them with parking, and parking is just basically, it's a very costly dead space, if you put it this way. I mean, it's a big area of asphalt, which doesn't really create any value. And it is actually quite costly to have. If you look at Google Maps of any site, you will see that there's a factory and there's like 5 times the amount of the factory is actually just
Parking.
yeah, it's just parking, and that's very costly actually. You don't reflect it, but parking is very, very costly. If you take, in average, I would say there's, I think you calculate 12 to 20 square meters for a parking spot, also taking the radius that you need to go in and out of the parking lot, and multiply it by the amount of cars, and then multiply it by the land value. It becomes quite a sufficient sum, I must say. And this is a little bit just an overview of the app, and I think I would otherwise recommend you to download it, and you can download it and go out and see it real time how it works. But some of the features is route planning, as mentioned. You will be able to put in. I'm going from this point of point A to point B, and they give you the best route. And I think this is, so to say, per se nothing. Nothing unique. You can find in Google Maps as well. But here is the unique part. Here is that it's focused on our internal system. Real-time visualization. You see where the vehicles are as an Uber. Trying to be as streamlined as possible. You open up the app and asks you where you want to go. You put it in, and then you get the directions. Information. Trying to be as customized as possible. If you're only going by Job Express, for instance, the shuttle, the bigger buses, you will only get information by that as well. And the crowdsourced improvements, meaning that the user is always able to kind of send in features of what kind of improvements they would like to see. So this is a little bit what we did for our own site. But as mentioned, just recently we were in Sao Paulo, where this market is enormous, of course, and as I understood also in Argentina, you have this commuting buses going every day, back and forth for each shift there is. So the market, as I see it in Latin America, as we understand it today, is much greater than we see in Europe, for instance, where we don't see that these kind of systems are so developed. People still tend to go either by public transport or by their own car. It's quite rare that the employer actually provides transportation service, which is then a huge market in South America or Latin America. So that's why we are actually now starting to a little bit redesign our service in order to kind of start to better be able to implement this in that region instead, because as we see, Europe has, so to say, is focusing on, of course, a lot on sustainability, but in another way. It's more of in terms of emission and these kind of questions, whereas we think we could be able to create, digitalize a lot of the commuting transport, let's say, in Latin America, and hopefully make it more efficient, make it better both for the transport provider and also for the employees.
I don't know if you already said, but in Sao Paulo, are you testing something like this, or not yet?
We I just came back this Sunday actually, so it's very fresh. But yes, we're about to implement this own system in our own plant in San Bernardo.
Okay.
Yeah, so we will start with that, and also we have some pilot customers that might be interested in, so to say, start picking this up. So I would say that is the most immediate next steps will actually be to focus more on the Latin American market, and of course, since Sao Paulo or San Bernardo is a huge place for Scania as well, where we have a big second largest factory, of course we will start there. Also where we also have internal buses, and where we thought we really were unique with, so to say, we have, let's say, I think 10 departures an hour in the rush hours for our big job expresses or commuting buses. We have 41 lines the first shift in Sao Paulo, and 39 the second shift. So it's such a massive operation over there, and that we are just one company out of hundreds of thousands of industries who are offering this.
Are you planning to provide all the service?
Yeah, of course. When it comes to internal transportation in what we saw, at least in Sao Paulo and its surrounding areas, it's not as demanded. It's only the big commuting part. So to say. That is the one that is. That's the big market, and of course, electrical bikes. We didn't see that much. That employer, but this whole system is totally adaptable for the various circumstances. So we created something which we thought were attractive for us, and now we kind of go out in the various parts of the world. Now we're in Latin America, so we're going to Asia. and trying to a little bit adapt this after the circumstances that is in that country, of course, or that region. But I personally believe after this trip that the Latin America will be huge potential for this, and we will definitely start to readapting our services or solutions depending on the needs of that market. So I'm quite optimistic for starting to say implementing our services over there. Yeah, I think that was all in total of the system. I don't have so much more I think of interest to present. So I would rather suggest that we can step out and have a look on the system. As I said, it's around lunchtime now, so that's quite good. It's a lot of people starting to move around. We also have, besides on the lunch hour, hopefully I saw it on the way here, that we have these buses which we use during rush hours for commuting people back and forth to the plant. We have them we call them the lunch bus, and it takes people from the factory site to our fitness center, which is located a little bit, I wouldn't say outside, but a little bit further away. So the buses are picking people up from various destinations here at the factory site, taking people up. So
I don't know if today, but for the app is different for the employees and from the bus drivers, I imagine. Like, if it's intelligent and it learns from past travels, you can manage your route where you have employees to pick up or something like that.
I think as of now, I think we're still here. We're still a bit in the experience phase. So we're not. I mean, our ambition is to get there.
I know. Tomorrow you can.
Exactly. So we're still. So this is a little bit less than this is what the drivers see. It's quite static. They don't see as much as us today. But this was just to sort of say the first platform in order to make it digitalized, in order to kind of start to gather all this data, and then we can start making all these improvements, as you mentioned, making it dynamic, making it on demand. And I think those are kind of the key buzzwords that everyone in mobility speaks about right now. Trying to get away from the fixed A to B lines and creating it more
dynamic route.
Exactly. So this is just an embryo of what we hope to be something much bigger. But we see, as I said, already in Brazil, since these operations are so massive over there, I think we calculated. We had a rough estimation of ourselves, and we believe almost that we couldn't almost not believe the numbers ourselves. So I don't know if it's true or not, but just by rough estimation, we estimated that this market is around 1 billion Brazilian real in what is spent on transportation for the news, because pretty much every industrial site.
Companies like Uber or Lyft have a lot of knowledge on dynamic routes.
Yeah.
Maybe you can speak with them, but they are so good at driving data.
Of
roads.
course, yeah, 100%.
The pools and everything are working so good.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think that is very much their corporate secret. I would love if they shared the data with us, but I think they have done quite a huge job to gather that data, and I think they will hold it very, very close to their hearts. So of course, I mean, big data is that is what drives everything today. All kind of business models are driven by big data more and more and more. So that is of course the ambition, I think, of many companies to try to first of all to gather this data. That itself is very difficult. And when you have this big data, you're able to start to make the tweaks and create these better routes and so on and so on. And it's of course Uber has a huge first mover advantage by being kind of the first one. But of course, all the taxis since before, they should have had this data, but I don't know if they really understood the value of it and collected it. I think Uber was the first one that really kind of understood or capitalized by understanding the market data and starting to collect it, and thereby be able to creating these better ways of transportation. But I guess more and more are starting to understand it. We are part of that journey.
Do you think it's possible to implement this system in the future in at least Södertälje city?
Yes, we're having actual dialogues about that. We have it's a little somewhat sensitive, but we have a neighboring big corporation within the medtech field. Of course, we're trying to find, there is also one part of this whole system that we would like to find synergies in the commuting part. Of course, because if you go in the morning rush hour from Stockholm to Södertälje, which I can't say the percentage, but a big part of the employees is doing every morning. I mean, you can be sure that every second car is going to Scania, and every other second car is going to that other, so to say, pharmaceutical site. So we are in dialogue with them to trying to see if we can find synergies. We have seen also how their employees are located. I mean, where in Stockholm they live, and of course it's very similar to how Scania employees are located. So of course that's the first step, we believe, and then of course in the long run that would be a huge win, I think, both for Scania and for this Södertälje society. That let's see if we can spread the electrical bikes also all over Södertälje. We can try to make our shuttle buses also. I mean, but some problems which we are facing is, and we are in dialogue with the government somewhat about this, is that it's become somewhat complicated when it comes to taxation, because all of a sudden this becomes like a benefit, and then you need to tax on this, because we are charging our employees, for instance, for the Job Express, the top one, but not for the rest of the modalities, because the other modalities, from the light vehicle to the bike, they are purely made for internal transportation. So for internal
no cost
exactly. So for internal transportation, you're allowed to provide the services for free, because it's a tool for your work. But when it comes to commuting back and forth, that's commuting basically. And if you start to offering this for free, that will be considered as a benefit.
part of the salary.
Exactly, and then you need to tax on this. So there's a ratio. I think it's an 80-20 ratio. We're only allowed to subsidize the Job Express up to 80%, and the 20% of the cost the end user needs to pay. And this, I think, is quite similar all over Europe. So that, of course, that creates a little bit a hurdle. At the same time, the societies wants them to lower the amount of cars and really welcome these types of solutions, which make things more efficient. But at the same time, you're having this taxation problem. You start to offer it, so to say, to a larger extent. The companies that offer it needs to tax for it. So I think there's a transition mode right now, and I know that there's these lobbying groups that are trying to push the governments to you have to make the taxation somewhat smarter if you want to have the solutions, or rather say you want to lower the amount of cars or vehicles in general in the cities, right? Then you need to open up for smart solutions. But as of now, we are kind of limited in what we can do because of the taxation. So it's a little bit of a limbo right now. But I hope that in the next coming years this will kind of sort itself out. Same, for instance, when we have these shuttle buses, we have one of our sites is located very close to the commuting train. In theory, you're actually not allowed to go from the commuting train to the shuttle because you're using it then as a commuting part. So in theory, you should kind of tax on that. So that's a little bit of a gray zone, but we can't really stop people to go from the commuting train because they're really close. We have basically 3 commuting train stops. One is just beside behind us here, but that's quite a walk to that, and there's no shuttle buses stopping even close to that stop. But as I said, on the ones we call Scania South, we have the train station and our so to say offices are, I don't know, just 150 meters apart, and of course we need to provide the employees that works in those offices. We need to provide them with shuttles, so no one can really stop anyone going from that part, from this train station to the shuttle, and make it as their commuting. But that's a little bit of a gray zone. We haven't had any problems with that so far. But in theory, we know that's a little bit tricky situation.
And what kind of other projects besides these are you working on
In my group, yeah.
Yeah, maybe not so deeply, but maybe.
Yeah, of course. I'm more than happy to mention. As I think I said in the beginning, there's a there's a project or concept recently started in the Stockholm city center. It's called co-loading, let's say. Actually, they have replaced the bigger bigger, heavy vehicles, the trucks basically. The distribution and the waste trucks, waste disposal trucks, have been they have kind of, instead of running those kind of traditional operations, they have implemented these small Linde vehicles. You know these Linde, electrical vehicles. You
Yes.
see them at the airports, right? So they have, by creating a specific trailer for these, they have created a solution right now together with. There's this big waste disposal company in Sweden called Ragn-Sells, and another Norwegian transportation company called Bring, which is the former mail of Norway. They have made this cooperation where Bring provides this co-loading system with parcels in the morning, and this co-loading, so to say, vehicle loads up their parcels on the specific trailer and then goes out on its route. It unloads the parcels during, so to say, its way out and takes the waste in at the same time. So I don't know if you follow my idea. So by doing that, they're trying to keep the fill rate as high as possible. And I mean, this is also in a very, very early stage. So we are a little bit involved in that, trying to both connect the vehicles and connect, as of now, the waste bins. Try to see the fill rate, let's say, of the waste bins. And by also creating such a interface for the driver, we were trying to provide the driver with a smarter routing in terms of how and where it should unload the parcels, and maybe how and where it should pick up the waste. But this is in a very early stage, but this is a little bit what we are looking into. Basically how to make much of the flows in the city centers work as smooth as possible. But I mean, we're also looking a bit of the surroundings, because of course people tend to live in the cities and then they work outside, and that of course affects the congestion of the city. So we have to kind of have a broader view than just the city center. But we're not looking into long haulage or any type of these questions. And then we have my colleagues. They are looking into somewhat called waste to energy, is how we can extract primarily gas from landfills or wastewater, because that creates this methane gas. You can extract that, you can purify it, and then you can either sell it to the grid, or we could sell it, for instance, to our own fleet.
Yesterday we went to a biogas facilities. Yes.
Okay, yeah. So we're looking into, or they are at least looking into a lot of this, how to, since Scania is focusing a lot on the biogas side, we also try to provide like a one solid solution. There's of course the infrastructure is a little bit lagging behind, depends on where in the world you are when it comes to this. So we're trying also to kind of create good circumstances for extracting gas and also providing the gas in order for our vehicles. But that's not my topic of expertise. I'm not able to answer too many questions on that side.
Okay.
I'm more focused on the mobility and so to say efficient transport in the city centers.
Right.
Any other questions?
Questions?
When you mentioned the conversion rate, you said that there was some
40.
talk about the unions.
Yeah. You mean on the app? Oh yeah, on the usage. Yeah.
Yes. So
Exactly. As I said, this system is only we're only letting our own employees onto the system, right? So we have a lot of consultants. I think 2,000 consultants is also working on the site, but we are as of not able to let them in onto the system. Of course, that will be a benefit, because I mean, in the long run, we're trying to find as many synergies as possible. Better that people take our mode of transportation than their private car, if we can provide a very seamless solution. But of course, that's kind of the logical side of it, and then you of course have the realistical side of
there's a
it.
restriction.
Yeah, I mean, then you always have, of course, the question with the unions. They want to have greater benefits for the ones that are fixed, so to say, that are employed by Scania and they're not consultants and so on. So that's an ongoing discussions, which we totally understand. Same thing with this benefit taxation. That's also a reality. So, as mentioned, there's one thing that's sit on your desk and creating good solutions, but then you come out in the reality and there's something else. They have the unions, you have the taxation and so on. We have to take all that in consideration. and that's why, as we were now in Sao Paulo, we also got like a new understanding of challenges there. So we kind of always, we have these bases, then we go out, do some need finding, go back, redo it, and so on. That's how we try to adapt it. So we're far from done. I don't know if that answers your question. So, I think. Any other questions? Something you found interesting or not? Or
Yes.
is this?
All the